of things that I like, and it turned out to be Two-Face. So, I think, in the next book, which I'm working on now called Dream Killer, it may not be so many of those different elements in it because I'm just going to be wrapping up some of the other things that kind of were left open in Two-Face. But, it's also going to be the same kind of suspenseful mystery, romance type thing also.
Yeah, and definitely. From when I read the reviews, even of other people that have read the book, it sounds like you have definitely caught a certain niche and everything. Now, I was just wondering, you talked about when you were a kid, and I know you're an adult now, writing and getting some of the inspiration from people that were around you. How much inspiration do you get from, like, your neighbors and the other folks that are involved in your life now, and do they find themselves in characters that you write, and can they recognize themselves as characters? Or are you one of those writers that's a real good master at masking who you are basing your writing on?
Before I answer this question, I'm going to put a disclaimer out there. If anybody that I mention right now, or if they think it sounds like them, it really isn't, because I don't plan on cutting anyone a check, just so they know. But for me, I am a people watcher. I am an observer, and so all of my characters in my book have pieces of people that I actually know. So it has pieces of me, pieces of family members, pieces of friends. And, some people may read the book and not even realize it, whereas some people may read it and be like, hey, wait, that seems a lot like me, or that experience seems a lot like something I've gone through, or, the way that person talks is a lot like the way I talk. And so, for me, it's just I'm really a quiet person because I spend a lot of time, observing and thinking and that kind of thing. And so, I'm able to make my characters out of real life people without them really, saying, hey, that's fooling me, because I just take pieces of what I think is going to make a great character and use that.
And I'm sure the people that you're writing about probably don't recognize themselves and everything. Now, one of the other things is that when I was reading your bio and studying where you're at, you're actually currently living in Colorado. So what is that like, living in Colorado? And is there an active creative community in the part of Colorado that you're in? And what drove you to decide to make this the home area? Because, like I said, when I think of mystery writers, I don't necessarily think of Colorado. I usually think of, like, big cities like New York and, of course, L.A., where people are also trying to get their stuff put on the Hollywood track as well. And I was also wondering that if you have aspirations of these mystery books becoming either a TV show or a movie.
So if there's a community in Colorado, I have yet to find it. I know that I've met some writers that live in Colorado. Most of them are in the Colorado Springs area. I know that there are, like some different newsletters and things that come out of Colorado Springs, which is, a good hour or so away from where I live. And so when the opportunity arises, I've been to a couple of things in Colorado Springs to kind of meet some people. I've been to a few conferences up there, a few writer conferences that come to this area. But other than that, there is not an active writing community in Colorado, in Denver, in where I live, which is the Metro Denver area. I would love one day to start one myself, because I think that would be great, because, it'd be nice for us to just kind of support each other, but that hasn't happened yet. I'm still trying to figure it out, and, if there is something, where is it? When I talk to people, they say the same thing. We don't know. We have no clue other than, what we know about in Colorado Springs. So, I think, Denver is big enough, the metro area is big enough for us to have a great, writing community support center here. There's no reason why we couldn't be known as, like a New York or an LA or that kind of thing. I think it's something we can definitely build here. For me, I've been in Colorado now for 9 years. I am actually from the East Coast. I'm actually from Pennsylvania. I was born in Pennsylvania. Lived in New Jersey for 11 years before I moved here to Colorado. I wasn't going to stay in Colorado, but once I got here, I decided to. So, and I'm 9 years later, I'm still here. So wasn't the plan to be here forever, but since I'm here, I try to take advantage of being kind of close to California and being able to jump on a plane if I need to, because yes, eventually I would love to turn both of my books, Two-Face and then the sequel, Dream Killer, into movies. It's funny when people talk to me about what they like best about Two-Face is the fact that they felt like they were watching a movie even though they were reading a book. And so that's my writing style. And so hopefully that will translate well on screen, and I'm hoping that, I can eventually do that, write a screenplay and have someone pick it up, and, you get to see it on in the movie theater coming soon, Two-Face. That would be great for me. I would love that. That is like the ultimate goal for me. In college, I was actually a film major, and so I would love to be able to direct movies, not just write them, but actually direct them too, and so that is a long-term goal for me.
Wow. Well, I actually have a friend of mine that actually made a career out of making movies and everything. He's actually based in L.A., but he's originally from Hillsborough, North Carolina, and he was one of the producers of that film that was actually pretty successful with Mekhi Phifer, called This Christmas, which was like we're about to come up on the Christmas season.
I love This Christmas, right?
Yeah, Ronnie Warner is a longtime friend of mine, and he's actually a filmmaker with his own studio, and now he started off as a stand-up comedian, so he's been struggling, as many people are, so he's kind of gone back to the stand-up, but he also is working on some film projects and even thinking about bringing some of the film studio work that he's been so involved with in New York to back home to North Carolina. And you'd be glad to know that Dean, my partner in crime on this show, is actually from New Jersey, so he's definitely glad to hear that there are New Jersey people being successful. Now, one of the things you talked about earlier was being a writer when you were a youngster and being encouraged by your teachers. And one of the things we've talked about on the show before is that it seems that in education, the arts has kind of lost its appeal to some of our educators because they've kind of gotten to that whole each to the test kind of mentality and everything. So I was wondering, what are your views on the teaching world and whether we're doing a good job of teaching creativity? Because it seems to me that we've gotten away from teaching creativity.
We're not. There is no. So my son just graduated high school this year, and there are so many opportunities that I had growing up as far as being creative that he just did not have. I mean, I had creative writing classes. I had the opportunity to play an instrument and be in a band, which is something I did, by the way. I played the flute in high school. I had the opportunity to do music theater. We did that in high school. I was in a few plays, and there were just not those opportunities, unless he actually picked that as his major. If he picked that as his major, he had the opportunity to be in these classes, but I didn't have to pick that as a major. I just had the opportunity to be in my opinion, well-rounded, where I was able to take sports, I was able to take, the arts and, music and that kind of thing, but also focus on being, going to college, because I was, a college prep major. And so not only was I getting the education to be able to take me to that next level of, to go to college, but I also had the opportunity to be in all of these different classes. I took piano lessons, in high school. And so they just didn't have that. He doesn't have that. And I think that, he's losing out. For me, I try to teach him, hey, let me teach you how to be creative when you write. Let me talk to you about, music and not just, hip hop. Let's talk about, some of the classics and those kind of things. And those just are things that they teach in school anymore. And, what do you do if, you have that, that ability, that talent to write or to draw or do all these different things, and there's no one in those younger ages, in those stages, that are able to help nurture that. If your parents don't know anything about writing, if your parents don't know anything about music, then there's no one really to help you to build that. And so I had all of that, and I'm so grateful for it. But nowadays, they just don't have that, and I think they're missing out on so much. And the young people nowadays are only focused on the internet. You know, they half the time they don't even want to go outside. And so they're missing on so many different things. I think that made us well-rounded adults. And so, you know, the focus is just on this one thing, whereas I was able to focus on many things. And that helped me along the way so much. And being able to, you know, learn about music and the different artists that I liked, and, you know, learning about writing, like I said, and even drawing and that kind of thing. So I think that we need that in the schools. And I know that there are still schools that teach that, but there are a lot of schools that don't. They don't even have those options. You know, they still have the sports options, but they don't have the arts options.
Yeah, and that's actually a shame that they don't have as much of the arts options as we used to have, and things of that nature. Now, you mentioned that you have the son and everything. You mentioned you were kind of following in your mom's footsteps, but you didn't find out until after she passed. But is your son doing some creative things? Is he becoming either a writer of music, a writer of mysteries? Does he have an interest in following in his mom's footsteps?
No. My son is the complete opposite of me. And it's funny because, you know, I try to, you know, I have a keyboard. I'm like, here, let me teach you how to, you know, play the keyboard. Here, are you interested in music? Here, do you? And the funny thing is that my son is very creative when it comes to writing, but he just doesn't want to expand that. You know, he's not interested in being a writer. He likes to read. You know, even though he had to read assignments, you know, for school, he still liked to read different books. And so at least that piece of it, I feel like he picked up for me because he does like to read. He doesn't do it often anymore now that he's out of school, but, you know, he still, you know, I know that that's something that he will enjoy. If given a good book, he will read it with no problems. But, you know, the rest of it, you know, I try to get him into music. I try to get him into art and all these different things. And for a while there, I really thought, you know, he was going to kind of follow in my footsteps. At one point, he was writing his own like comic strip. You know, he would do the actual commentary, do the words, and he would do the drawing. And that didn't last for long. He got into some video games, and then that kind of destroyed, you know, any ambitions in that area. So, you know, I think it's needed because I think, you know, our kids are really creative, and it's a shame that a lot of that creativity is not being nurtured, because I think, you know, they're just missing out on so many different things.
I definitely agree with you. You're right. They're missing out on a lot of different things. But we got another caller. That's a good thing. But do stay on the line. But I do have one other quick question before we bring in the other guests and everything, and that is, sure. We talked about books and the use and everything. And I remember I still love picking up a good book and reading a good book. But sometimes we get caught up in this whole philosophy of people believing that books have become obsolete, kind of like they say newspapers have become obsolete. And I'm actually a journalism major, so I still pick up a copy of the newspaper and don't just read it online. But I was wondering, how do you cope with people that are trying to, like, say that, you know, that the old-fashioned book doesn't have the same merits that it used to have?
There is nothing like having an actual book in your hand, you know, no matter what anyone says. It's funny because I honestly thought when I released my book that the majority of my sales were going to be, you know, e-books, you know, Kindles, that kind of thing. But honestly, people have bought physical copies of the book, and for two reasons. One is because they actually want me to sign it. And two, you know, a lot of them say the same thing that I say, and that is, you know, for me, a lot of times if you're reading a book, you know, on a device, you know, it just doesn't have the same kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's just not the same, you know, than actually feeling a piece of paper in your hand and being able to flip through the pages and losing your place with being able to fold back, you know, the piece of the page you're on, and being able to find your place, you know, quickly. And it just doesn't, it's just not the same. You know, yeah, you can go on vacation and have your Kindle with you, or, you know, have your iPad with you, or whatever you're reading the book on, but it's just different, you know, for people that have grown up in my era. We still like to actually read books, real books. And so when I have a book signing, you're going to come and I'm going to sign what for you if you don't have a physical book? You need to buy the real one and come so I can sign it for you. So I think that this generation, some people in this generation, my kid enjoys reading a real book versus, you know, having it on an iPad and, you know, a Kindle, that kind of thing. And it's for the same reasons that I said. He said it's just different. He's able to concentrate